Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, and today I'll be talking about the Nine of Wands. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. The best way to support the podcast right now is to listen daily, rate, review, and to follow or subscribe in your chosen podcast app. If you're loving the podcast and want to further support me, you can join our Patreon family where you get behind-the-scenes access to upcoming topics, polls, monthly hangouts, and more. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, I'd love to see you at my next Let's Talk Tarot Meetup Group event. Join me in person on Monday, April 14th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Sumner Library to create our own tarot cards. No experience is necessary. I'll bring all the supplies and we'll talk tarot and craft together. If you don't already know, I'm a sex and relationships therapist seeing clients virtually all over Washington State. I love working with queer, kinky, poly, and witchy clients who might be struggling with anxiety, chronic pain and illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex. Please book a free 20-minute consultation with me to make sure we're a good fit to work together. If you're interested in my free PDF with the 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on my upcoming events, presentations, musings, and info and photos of my day-to-day life. You can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards that I pull. All right, so we are in season 6, where I'm talking all about the suit of wands, going through each card one per episode. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you should go ahead and check those out. The first season, I talked tarot basics. In seasons 2 and 3, I went through the major arcana and the 4 suits, one per episode. In season 4, I talked all about tarot and pop culture. And in season 5, I went through 13 common tarot spreads. Like I said, we're into season 6 now, and I'm talking all about the suit of wands. If you want to hear an episode dedicated to an overview of the suit of wands, you can check out season 3, episode 10. And today we're talking all about the Nine of Wands. So some images or symbols associated with this card are guarded or guards, boundaries, and then also like an aspect of sort of like porous boundaries. So often when we look at the Rider-Waite-Smith sort of traditional card, there's these sort of 9 staffs or wands all standing up. And we see a person sort of in front of them or in between them, as if like maybe this is almost like a gate or like that they're trying to guard something behind it. But then also, right, if we think about it, like 9 pieces of wood that aren't connected at all or aren't, right next to each other aren't a very good fence or boundary or wall. So this card is sort of all about this aspect of sort of, right, with 9s, we're nearing the end of sort of the journey. If aces are the beginning and 10s are completion, 9 is like we're almost there, right? We still have some things to get through, perhaps, or sort of things that we need to stop from getting through or to focus on. In the Library of Esoterica tarot book by Toshin, they talk about 9s are nearing completion and gaining wisdom. The 9 of Wands demands that we be prepared in order to persevere, and that we move through difficulties with focus and strength. So I pulled 3 of my 9 of Wands cards from 3 different decks. So in the Sassurabito Tarot deck by Stasia Burrington, this card is depicted almost, it looks like the way that you would like set a bone. It sort of shows like a bone that looks like it's been broken or fractured, and then a wand sort of behind it, and then there's all of this like cord or rope or yarn or something that attaches the bone to the wand in the middle of the image. And then there's sort of like 4 and 4 wands on either side that are jutting in from the edges, again with the rope sort of interwoven between them. So to think about, right, if you were to set a bone, It needs to stay in place for a long time, especially if it was broken, so that it can heal properly. So again, we sort of think about, right, that is sort of creating I guess sort of like a level of boundary or guardedness, right? If you do break something, we often are very cautious or careful around, right, that part of our body, sometimes even once it has healed, because it was broken, perhaps we sort of take it easy or gently, or maybe don't like exercise it enough or put weight on it fast enough because we're still very cautious of what happened there. So I definitely think about that when I see this card. In the image of the Nine of Wands in the Lila and Olive Ophidia Rosa Tarot, um, I'm going to read the description that they associate with this card because it's pretty brief. It says, let go of your roots, be plucked and brought through. So we see an image of sort of three flowers, it looks like, that are all attached to, it looks like a single plant with leaves, and then we see all these roots underneath as well. So, right, if we think about a plant, part of the way that it stays stable, grounded, right, boundaried, is that it uses those roots to connect with nutrients and other things in the ground to absorb water and things like that. And then we sort of see the representation of that, or the flowers or things above the ground. But if you were to, right, tear the plant out of the ground and put it elsewhere and not have its roots sort of firmly planted again, often that plant will die. Or if you leave its roots exposed for too long without nutrients or just with the air exposure, it will again sort of shrivel up and die often. Some plants are okay if they're just in water, but not all, and usually not for a very long time, sort of a limited time. So we have to think about, right, like it says, let go of your roots, be plucked and brought through. So this is almost talking about, right, that we have to let go of maybe things that were not serving us in the past, or right, things that we maybe created boundaries around, or things that were not helpful. And then we have to be, right, sort of picked and brought through to the other side. So the other side, again, of the gate or the fence or the boundary, where we might feel safer, or we might, right, have a better, I guess, understanding of what is okay with us and what isn't. And in the last deck that I'm talking about, this is the Goddess of Love Tarot deck by Gabriela Herstick and illustrated by Julia Popescu. So in here, it talks about that the Nine of Wands is associated with the moon and Sagittarius. It says, sometimes being inflamed with desire can cause your vision to become distorted. Consider separating yourself from the situation because you are too fired up and in your head to see clearly. In any sort of relationship, whether with a partner or with the goddess herself, perspective is required, right? So this is, again, that sort of like taking ourselves out of the present situation, examining it, right? Maybe poking at it is a phrase I use in therapy as a therapist, to sort of say, like, let's interrogate it, right? Let's see what that is and sort of what's going on there. And it can be very difficult to get out of a rut, but if you choose to engage with your true will in a fresh way, to break old patterns and trust in your heart, you can unlock new vantage points. This card talks about allow your lust to guide you, but don't hold on to the outcome too tightly. So again, like stepping into new vantage points, right? Seeing what's on sort of the other side and using a way to sort of move through that by having boundaries. All right, so let's take a look at some of my favorite books and what they have to say about the Nine of Wands. So in the Tarot and Astrology book by Karine Kenner, they talk about the Nine of Wands, also again, Moon and Sagittarius. It says, in this card, the young warrior's posture is defensive. She's an experienced fighter, and she has allied herself with a spiritual force that's so strong and organized, enough to stand up to any onslaught. So again, sort of the traditional Rider-Waite Smith depiction of the card is like a person with these like staffs or, wands sort of set up behind them, almost like a fence or, a guard, like a wall. and then they're sort of holding one of them, right, in the way that like a guard often does in front of something, and they're looking out, right? They look literally like they're looking out. They look on guard and watchful. She knows that a surprise attack could come at any moment, and she doesn't dare let down her shield. While her back is against the wall, her body is angled so that she can respond to a threat from any direction. The Golden Dawn designers of this card called the Moon in Sagittarius the Lord of Great Strength, because the calming power of the moon gives Sagittarius the deep philosophical underpinnings he craves, especially when it comes to spiritual battles. That Sagittarian and lunar blend of emotion and reason can help us build a fortress of strength, resolve, and self-reliance. In a tarot reading, the Nine of Wands often represents a wounded warrior, one who might have lost the battle but plans to win the war. So again, there is also this level of like assessment or evaluation, right? That again, maybe the one battle was lost, right? And now you're sort of recuperating, you're thinking about long-term strategy, and you're trying to see, right, how do I maybe do this differently for next time? In the Fearless Tarot book by Elia Adam, they say that this card is all about boundaries, as I talked about earlier. It says, the Nine of Wands illustrates that you win at the game of life each time you stand up for yourself. This can mean creating boundaries with others who want to control you or take you down a peg. It can also mean confronting your own self-limiting attitudes and expectations. The Nine of Wands symbolizes that a personal victory is achieved each time you stand up for your dignity, worthiness, and self-respect. Do you have trouble standing up for yourself because you fear creating conflict? Is it difficult for you to feel proud of your strengths and accomplishments? Is your greatest adversary the sabotaging voice in your own head? The man on the Nine of Wands has defended himself against all comers for 12 rounds. He is bandaged, showing that it wasn't easy and that he endured a few blows. He's created a fence with the 8 wands standing behind him. He's established a boundary. The mountains in the distance form yet another boundary. The boundaries are the theme of this card. Each wand the victor has acquired was hard-won and is a trophy of his accomplishment. He is bumped and bruised, but he is still standing. He is standing up for his honor, he's standing up for his achievements and his worth, and much like the hermit, he leans on a staff which represents wisdom through experience. Even unpleasant experiences offer a gift. Nothing is going to take this man down. He has too much dignity to allow that to happen. He has proven his worth to himself. The Nine of Wands represents pride, but not the sort that lashes out to defend a wounded ego. This sort of pride is the dignity one feels in building their own world with blood, sweat, and tears. Be proud of the scars that life sent you in the past. They made you a survivor. Even though things may not have come easy up until now, the school of hard knocks has made you formidable. The only possible opponent left to defeat may be coming from within you. Stand up to the shadow that tells you you aren't smart enough, talented enough, good enough, successful enough, thin enough, or strong enough. This card appears when it is time to place boundaries up for the protection of all that you've worked for. Perhaps it's time to stop meekly saying yes when your heart is screaming no. It is okay to go against the expectations of others by being honest. It's time to stand up to bullies and manipulators with clear boundaries. Embrace the part of you that is strong and stand up for what you know is right. Be honest and clear with yourself and others. If you take a stand, you will win. So that seems very in line with everything we are talking about, right? And they also sort of reference this idea that sometimes, right, we are our biggest critic, and that can be sort of this like last battle or last staff that we have to deal with. Is that sometimes, right, we can set the boundaries with other people, we can ask for certain things or our needs to be met, but then sometimes we, right, are the ones that are sort of allowing that to happen or not holding our own boundaries around certain things or allowing yourself to sort of give in when other people push against boundaries. In the Tarot for Change book by Jessica Dorr, she talks about that though it may feel just like the opposite at first, the best thing you can do to help yourself and others feel safe is to have solid boundaries and uphold them. I often think of communicating a boundary as a bit like getting informed consent from someone. It's right to let others know the terms of engagement before they get involved. This keeps you safe, and it also keeps the other person safe from the possibility of you exploding in a fit of rage because you said yes too many times when you should have said no. It's scary to be close with people who give indiscriminately without a sense of their own limits. And while coming up against a boundary might be distressing at first for someone who isn't used to boundaries, though they may and likely will push back, threaten, stamp their feet, and even punish, I promise you that on some level, even if not immediately apparent, it will make them feel safe because they will know exactly what to expect from you. All right, so let's go ahead and grab our decks and dive in and see what the cards have to say on this topic. So as I'm shuffling, I'm going to be thinking about, right, where do I maybe need to set some new boundaries? Right, if anything has come up recently where I felt maybe pushed or resentful after something happened. I'm going to be thinking about how boundaries, like Jessica Dorr talked about, right, that even at first, if people protest or don't like it or feel like this is a different kind of version of you as you set boundaries, ultimately people will appreciate the fact that at least they know where you stand. Even if that means, something looks different in the short term. And that when we don't set boundaries for ourselves or we don't kind of hold those boundaries, what often happens is later we become resentful, and then that can affect the relationship anyway, even if in the moment, right, what was going through your head was, oh, well, I should just go along with this because this is what the other person wants. Yeah, and I think this is particularly hard for those of us who identify as former or people pleasers, recovering people pleasers, because it can feel like, oh, right, this is very different to recognize what it is I want in the moment and voice it even when I think or know that someone else is not going to be happy with it, or that they might push back, or that it's going to cause conflict. Um, Conflict is not bad. As someone that works with couples and relationships and therapy, a lot of people think, oh, like I just need to decrease the amount of conflict I have with my partner. Right, there might be ways to decrease like things said during conflict or the way that you conflict. But conflict is not inherently bad. Conflict is often um, can be like a means of negotiation or sometimes like a breaking point when two boundaries sort of, or two people's boundaries, and trying to negotiate where those are and how to support each other in these different ways of being. Um, and so I think about the fact that, yeah, it's more about the interactions you have with partners or people in relationships and that there are more positive ones than negative. That is a research done on couples by John and Julie Gottman out of the Seattle area that are therapists. And they talk about um, that it's not really about how much conflict you have in relationship as to what is deemed a successful or long-term relationship, but that it's all about, right, how many of your interactions do you have more positive interactions than negative, and that is the ultimate actually determination of whether you're going to stay in that relationship or not, or sort of like a quote-unquote healthy relationship. So as we think about that with boundaries, right, and our own sort of feelings about them or worries about them or how we're going to show up or how people are going to perceive us or how they're going to react, right? If we think about boundaries, that allows us to have, ideally in the long term, more positive interactions, right? Because now you've talked about what you need or what you're going to do if someone presents a certain situation to you, and that it sort of then allows the other person to know, like, okay, like, right, they're setting this boundary. What am I going to do about that? Am I going to continue my behavior? And then this person might, right, remove themselves from my life? Or is this a thing that we can come to some sort of like negotiation or about where we can both sort of meet each other at the boundary in the middle, right? If we think about sort of like the battle that's depicted on this card sometimes, is that like, can you meet at the fence, right, and discuss something from there without having to pull yourself back behind it or have someone push through to the other side. All right, so that was sort of long-winded, but let's get into what the cards have to say on this topic. I'm pulling from my Anima Mundi deck by Megan Weiler-Wenden. Okay, one more shuffle, and then I'm gonna go ahead. So, ooh, interesting. I pulled the Wheel of Fortune card today, which is a Major Arcana card, and sort of all about that you don't know what you're going to get, right? If you think about the game Wheel of Fortune or any sort of spinning wheel, prize wheel, right? When you spin it, you're hopeful it's going to land on a certain thing, but you don't really know what's going to come up, right? It could be you win a big prize, a small prize. Sometimes it's a negative things, depends on the game. But for the Wheel of Fortune, it says life is full of ups and downs, and those forces are sometimes out of your control. Like a spinning wheel, things come and go in a cycle. Do not be complacent during good times, and during bad times, remember that things will eventually get better. Go with the flow, remain optimistic, and learn to adapt to the constant changes. So upright, this is all about life cycles, destiny, ups and downs, and karma. This is very interesting because this is also the second time with the reference of karma that I was thinking about White Lotus, season 3 that just had the finale on Sunday. I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but karma and people pleasing are things that came up. And so that is sort of coming to mind right now since I just watched that episode recently. And the finale was just happened for me a couple days ago. But this is also talking about, right, that let's control what we can control. And then, right, when we spin the Wheel of Fortune, there are going to be things that happen, things that come and go in a cycle, right, that we have to be grateful during good times. And then during bad times, right, it can be helpful to remain hopeful about that things will eventually get better in the future. That if we think of the year or our lifetime as a wheel, right, things come in cycles, so things come back around, like seasons, literally, with the weather, or right where you live, but also just like when you're in a season of busyness at work, or when you're in a season of young children that you're caretaking for, or when you're in a season of career development, or when you're in a season of a new relationship, right? A lot of those things are also seasons, and they can come and go. And so we have to figure out, right, how to set our own boundaries or, deal with the things as they do come up, control what we can about ourselves and how we show up. And then with everything else, right, we mostly don't have control, even when we would like to think that we do, or would love to plan so that nothing bad happens, right? That's not really how it works. All right, so that's all for today. So links for the tarot decks will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.